Hey everyone, welcome back to the Fitness Devil podcast. We've got Gareth Sapstead on today. He's a writer and online coach, in-person coach. And Gareth is doing some really, really cool stuff, especially with his Instagram. So we're going to talk lots more about that. I guess this is episode 122. I should point that out. So we're going to talk about, again, innovation on Instagram, what's too much, how to do it right, how not to be like a circus freak. We get into whether or not you should niche down or you should keep your appeal pretty broad to your audience. Gareth's had a lot of success with his online training, so he talks about some of the principles behind doing that well. And then he talks about he was published early and some of the discussion around how that came to be and how his career progressed. So stay tuned. Hope you enjoy it.
Shut up and sit down.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Fitness Devil podcast. Today's guest is Gareth Sapstead. You might have heard of him as the Fitness Maverick on his social media. He's from the UK. You'll tell pretty quickly by the accent, or you might hear a hint of Aussie in there because he spent a year there recently. He's working on his online business. But he's back in the UK, and we've navigated the time difference because we're in Edmonton, Alberta. And so we've got him on here. I'm losing my train of thought, but Gareth has a pretty extensive fitness education. You got a master's degree in strength and conditioning science and a whole lot more. But I'll let you tell us a little bit more about you before we start bombing you with questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, pleasure to be on here, guys, and thank you so much for inviting me on. A little bit of background about me, really. I'm a strange one, really. I'm a marketer's nightmare. I've been kind of everywhere. I've been in mainstream gyms, in private gyms. I've had my own facility. I've had my own private training studio. I started out training people in their houses, but then also my background really is in actually sports performance. So when I was a lot younger, it was a case of me trying to almost build up that education so I could work with athletes. And then actually over time, as I was working with mainstream clients, general pop clients at the same time, I actually decided that I didn't want to work with athletes, and actually general population was what I enjoyed doing the most. So, I got lots of look-ins with some really high level athletes, and some, I was at some soccer clubs and some rugby clubs, head of kind of academy performance and things there. But at the same time, running my personal training business, that's actually what flourished, and that's what I enjoyed doing the most, really. So that's a bit of a background about me, but I'm sure we'll kind of go into different kind of tangents off there anyway.
Do soccer players train?
Begrudgingly, yeah.
That was a soccer joke. I don't know how.
Yeah, it's one of those things. When I was, probably, I was about 20 years old, I got a look in at a championship, so kind of like a tier 2 club over here. And it was run, or the manager at the time was Italian. And their mentality is very much to get better at football, you just play football. That's it. So here's me coming in, doing the S&C work, trying to make them lift weights, etc. And you've got the manager thinking that stuff's going to get them slower, it's going to get them, slower on the pitch, it's going to get them less sharp, etc. So you're fighting a battle with the manager, and obviously whatever the manager says goes. So my role there just ended up being keeping the athletes on the pitch and not injuring them, really. So that environment does make things hard. Whereas rugby, that's the other way around. You can smash them as much as you like, really, and
Is that part of the reason why you made the switch? Just because you can kind of control your own destiny, I guess, so to speak.
Yeah. So I'm very much kind of I suppose a bit of a solopreneur. I hate that term, really, but everything I do is on me. I have in the past employed other trainers. I've employed people to do things for me, but I like to have that massive control over things. And as well with my clients, it's a good thing and a bad thing. I like to have that massive control over them as well. So that does benefit me as far, especially in an online business goes nowadays. And it just shows to them that I care, that I'm keeping that kind of close contact with them and things like that. But yeah, I am a bit of a control freak. You can ask my girlfriend that. Yeah.
You heard us laughing, both laugh at the same time when you said solopreneur.
Yeah.
We actually made fun of that particular word on an episode with our friend Mike Howard. Now he's a nutrition-based guy. He goes by the
name too. He's like, this is what it is, but I hate it. Same exact response.
You might have heard of him. He goes by Lean Minded on his social media, and he just was flashing a book around they wrote. He's a really awesome dude. So of course, what do? We always have some sort of funny title and slap someone's face on a graphic of some movie or whatever. So we called his solopreneur, and we put him on Han Solo from Star Wars. So he loved that.
Well, you can't use that for me now, which is
no. We'll find something appropriate for you. Probably, I don't know, with the accent, we might find something from Snatch or Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels or something of that nature. We'll see.
Okay with that, yeah.
We'll figure it out.
Peaky Blinders or something. I don't
know. That would actually be good too. Fuck yeah.
That would probably work.
That's like, of course, like everyone's gonna be like, yeah, you get the guy's accent and do the British thing, but like you have to. Like
we'll figure it out. So let's actually jump into something that I found kind of fun, because what I noticed with your social media is you and a few other people. I think of someone like Lee Boyce is a good example of this. There are definitely others who blend a lot of really practical, sound training philosophy with sometimes novel interpretations. It can be innovative, but still walking that line between not doing like circus shit. So, and I'm reminded, our friend Chad Landers, he recently posted a quote, and he said, "I'm all for variety and novel stimuli with exercise selection, but what I see on social media often looks more like parlor tricks and gym shenanigans than safe, sound training." So, two-part question is, what do you think of that idea in the first place? And how do you kind of navigate that fine line between, here are some innovative ideas, but yet they're still actionable and they're not stupid?
Yeah, good question. And yeah, I do 100% agree with Chad there. It's a really good question, and it is definitely a fine line. So everything that I kind of create, especially on Instagram, maybe we can go into Instagram specifically in a while, because you know, you're only getting a minor kind of view of that person. You're only seeing the tree, you're not seeing the whole forest in a way on Instagram, and that's probably the downside to that. But everything I'm sharing on Instagram and is creative is actually a solution that I've provided to someone. I've probably got, I don't know, roughly 17,000 hours of working with clients one-to-one. And we mentioned that my business is mostly online now, and even in the past few years I do still work with one-to-one people. But before I transitioned online, I was, as I said, 15,000 hours working with people one-to-one, and that's the general population. And you see a shitload of problems. You see exercises that they can't do. You see shoulder issues, knee issues, back issues, whatever. You name it, and they've got it. So, the common problem I see with trainers, especially, is you're trying to fit an exercise to a client. I'll give you a prime example. Deadlift is a great exercise, but you guys and I both know that deadlift isn't suitable for everyone. And don't get me wrong, I'll give you an example. I had a client first thing this morning at 7 a.m. and she basically, you can't get any kind of meat and veg as this. It was a trap bar deadlift, it was a dumbbell press, and it was an eccentric pull-up and a loaded carry. You can't get more kind of meat and potatoes as that. But because of the type of client that she is, the trap bar deadlift was 2 inches off the floor because that fitted her structure a little bit better. The dumbbell press was on a slight decline with a neutral grip position because she's got slightly cranky shoulders, and that's a nicer position for her. The eccentric pull-up was because she can't do a normal pull-up yet. And for me, eccentrics are a great way to build up that pull-up strength. And the loaded carry was with a band around her hip, because basically I don't have the space where I'm training her to be able to do a 30-yard loaded carry with her. Now, out of that workout, for example, I might have filmed her do the loaded carry with a band around her waist or something, with holding a dead ball up to her chest. And that's all that people see on Instagram. So, to me, that's a solution to a problem that's been created. And that's an exercise that's fitted her really well. But obviously for the purpose of Instagram, it's a great share because it's a tool for someone. It's a tool that someone else might be able to use. And that's my idea. When I share something on Instagram, it's here's what it is. Here's why it might be good. Here's who it might fit. and that's up to you whether you use it or not. So I suppose that's the problem really, in that, as I said, Instagram it's the trees, it's not the forest. And,
Well, and one thing too is like when people like you're explaining why you do things, and it's I don't even want to say authorities, but like there's this negative connotation that trainers are responsible for like educating people on what their Instagram is and what it's used for. And like, at what point can you just like do whatever the fuck you want? Like, it's not that it's not your problem, but like you're doing stuff that you want to do creatively, and people are saying like, that's novel, and why are you doing it this way? And it's like, listen, like, you know what I mean? Like it's like everyone has to defend themselves for the stuff they do.
That's it. I think, look, I really early on in my career, and I can't remember who said it, or it might have been something that I read, and it basically just said you must be able to justify. And that has carried with me throughout my entire career. You must be able to justify every single exercise that you give to your client, whether they ask, whether you ask in your own head, whether someone else asks. Imagine the best coach in the world, or someone you really look up to, watching every single training session that you're doing with a client, and then you having to justify everything you're doing to them. And that's how I think every trainer should approach everything. I think it's just unfortunate the way Instagram is, and Facebook to an extent, that what I am sharing is getting more views because it's creative, but really what I'm sharing is just a tool to have in your toolbox. Whether you use it or not, that's up to you really. And I think as you were mentioning, Andrew, the single leg hip thrust with the landmine,
love it.
That and the donkey kick with the landmine, that's something that's become really, really popular recently, because Brett Contreras has shared it. He's tagged me into it. He's given me credit. Absolutely love the guy. So a pleasure for him to share that. And a lot of people are doing it. And those actually came out of solutions to a problem that I had. And especially with the donkey kick, how do you efficiently load a donkey kick? It's one of those things. And I just mucked about one day. It worked. It felt good. Tried it with a few clients that I know are open to ideas. Tried it with them, and I think Brett in the last few weeks has added it to his top exercises of the year or something within his glute camp. So it's a little bit of validation there, which is great.
Well, and the cool thing is, so like that thought process, I think, for like, I'm not going to say new trainers coming up, but when people look at Instagram, they're looking at, oh, this is a good idea. Like, I'm going to just do it. And like, they don't even understand why that setup is like, you know what I mean? There's no understanding to some of these things. Like, yeah, they're novel, but they're solution based on these contexts. And I think like that whole thought process is lost on a lot of new people. They just see something and they do it, as opposed to be like, why did he do this? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that just goes right over people's heads sometimes.
A few thoughts that I want to throw in here too. First of all, usually we always wait till the end to tell people, hey, go, find someone on social media. But if you're not driving and listening to this, I actually would say just quickly pause it and go look up Gareth's Instagram. It's The Fitness Maverick on Instagram. And you're going to get an idea of what we're talking about here. So I think a lot of people that we interview, they have good social media stuff. In fact, a lot have great stuff. But I think you may actually be one of the people who most effectively uses Instagram to showcase this kind of stuff. And I actually want people to kind of sort of get a sampling of it just so they can appreciate what we're talking about. I think that there are people I have friends who on Instagram do circus shit, and I love them. But it's hard for people to tell. I think it's really important if you understand the background of a trainer as being someone who is skilled, and 99% of what they're doing with clients is a lot more grounded, a lot more fundamental. And then they're wandering into pushing the boundaries of, performance a little bit on their social media. Then, you got to be able to differentiate between the people who are really, really just circus performers for attention and the people who really do have the fundamentals down. And I think a really good example of that would probably be our friend Megan Calloway, Megan does all kinds of really, really like extreme, intense, challenging shit. Because I think she's trying to push the boundaries of what she can do, and she's being experimental. But at the same time, she's showing it herself. And I'll bet you any money that Megan, when she's working with her clients, she's not doing this kind of stuff with her clients. So realizing that is pretty important for anybody who's following this stuff.
Definitely. I hate to kind of throw names out there, but Joel Seedman.
Joel Seedman. Yeah.
I think, to be honest, I think he's too smart for his own good. Because what he's sharing, he can justify just about everything that he's given to a client. And I think that's a positive and a negative for him, because I think just by looks at it, he does get a lot of backlash for that. And, you know, talking about muscle fascia and the posterior superior line and things like this that people don't even know about. I think there's probably one book, Anatomy Trains, that if you've read that, that's pretty much all the information you're going to get on that subject. But he's someone that massively pushes the boundaries. But probably like me, that might just be the assistant's work. You know, that might not be the stuff he's given to every single client. That might be something.
I don't even know what Joel Seedman does in a training session.
No, exactly.
Because like he can't be doing all the stuff he's doing.
He just can't.
Like if you just looked at his shit, it's like he's doing stuff on three limbs with bands pulling everything and chains around neck for everything. And like and maybe he does do that. Like maybe that's literally everything he does. But
he's also working with some extraordinarily high level athletes. You have the Meadows brothers from Tampa Bay Rays in baseball. And I know he's got a whole shit ton of people. My thoughts on Joel kind of align with yours, Gareth, where I think he sometimes almost seems like he's too smart for his own good. And one thing I know, I strongly believe, and somebody else said this as well, I can't remember who, is Joel is very, very good at and comfortable with like sort of pushing people's buttons and almost antagonizing people within our industry with this really progressive stuff, because he's good at building an audience and it will attract a certain type of person. But I think also it's important to remember, and we've said this a couple times already here, but this guy is probably a master of the fundamentals to the point where he can apply them in really, really extreme ways.
Absolutely. I agree, yeah.
Well, and everyone else is too stupid to use his stuff. For real though, if you don't understand any of that stuff, like he's basically, and we used this last time, but like he's giving dynamite to a bunch of kids. Like, can you imagine when you first started training as like 16, 15 years old and you go do one of his exercises? Like, that's not gonna help anything. And it'd be really hard to set up. So it's just like, holy,
like an online subscription app. I think that's his kind of his bread and butter for online, some kind of app. And I could just imagine people downloading it for $6.99 a month and be like, what the fuck is this? How do I get it?
You know what? The thing is with him too, it's like, and this is good for this conversation because like this goes in that novel territory, is that as much as he's crazy, his stuff doesn't actually bleed into the general population like a lot of the other stuff does. Like we use glute training with, I think, Lizzie Ostro, and like how every machine now is a glute machine. Like, but those are all novel stuff on a lot of people's Instagram accounts, how they use everything for a fucking glute machine. That's made the mainstream. Joel Seedman's shit you can't even do half of his stuff in a gym. Yeah. Which is like, but then there's that whole conversation is like maybe all this novel stuff is just like better for the industry as a whole, because now there's people that are doing stuff that they normally wouldn't do because they thought it was cool on Instagram, which is like that whole thing that doesn't get talked about because people just get made fun of. Especially another professionals like us. Like we'll go on and we'll just trash the whole fucking thing. But like there is a net positive in a lot of this stuff.
Well, here's another point to all this stuff too. I mean, how long ago was it that, a barbell hip thrust was a novel idea? We've talked to Brett Contreras on the podcast about, his origins of that stuff. We actually didn't talk very much about glutes, but, I'm reading Glute Lab, his book, and, it talks about the guy pretty much popularized it. And I think 20 years ago in a commercial gym, if somebody was humping a barbell off a bench, people would look at them like, what the fuck are you doing? Whereas now it's very bizarre not to see it at least once in a commercial gym, probably anywhere, certainly in North America and probably most of the world. So it took a while for that and a lot of the other glute things that he has been at the forefront of popularizing. And those things now you look over and you see some girl with a band around her knees doing something. You're like, okay, cool, that's normal. Where once upon a time that stuff probably would have been considered really strange.
Definitely.
Now,
yeah.
I'm not sure that all of Joel's stuff will 10 years from now be the norm in commercial gyms, but I think a few things will catch on.
No, but here's another thought. What happens if you downloaded Joel's app, you logged into it, and it was just bench, squat, deadlift, row?
It probably would be so. I can't comment on it because I don't have his app, but like it probably is that. Like,
never know.
can you imagine his coaching cues? Like, and this is where some of these novel things get fucked up. Can you imagine, like, actually the coaching cues involved in some of these stuff if you don't even have a relationship or like a foundation with your clients? Like, because like you have to translate all this information to this novel thing, and it's like it's fucking, I don't know, it's tough.
It is tough.
I'll come back with one sort of point, and especially if you get fairly new trainers who are listening to this, or people who are trying to master, their business and be successful. I still think you're going to do best with the fundamentals of everything, and I wouldn't go out of your way to try to employ creativity when a simple solution will work. But it's like, and I think Gareth, you're probably the best example, given your answer to this stuff. I think you would be a really good resource to follow and learn practical solutions to common problems.
Yeah.
And if it changes the way trainers think to get them outside of that box of everything has to be like traditionally and this is the only way to do it, then at least it'll challenge them to broaden their thinking.
Definitely. I definitely think trainers need to be more adaptable.
Yeah.
Need to be a little bit more creative as far as their clients go. Sometimes, as I said, trying to get everyone to bench squat, deadlift, etc. with a barbell isn't going to work. And the more and more people you see, the more and more you realize that. And it could be as simple as, putting a wedge under something or reducing some range of motion in something. It can be that simple. But, as trainers need to have the tools and the background, the knowledge, the experience to be able to.
And the experience in the tools, because like you said, learning what a wedge does and doesn't do, or like a rotation of an arm does or doesn't do, is like pretty much trial and error. And like you'll start to like trust your opinion on some of those things, but you can't do it if you don't try it. So if you just stick to the basics, at some point you're confined to a box of what you can do, which isn't transferable if you step out anywhere outside of your little circle or your gym or whatever, your equipment set. Like you can't even go online, because what if someone doesn't have the same equipment as you? You don't even know what the fuck all this other stuff does.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Let's talk about butt stuff. We like using that one. But your I think it's like your tagline is like usually we make fun of people who are like, I help entrepreneurs, fitness entrepreneurs make six figures. Yours is mostly butt and bicep stuff, to be honest. So that's his Instagram bio, but this speaks to understanding marketing and attracting and speaking to a broader audience. So would you kind of share your thoughts on creating an accessible and popular brand while avoiding a lot of the murkier Instagram influencer behavior? And like for anyone who like doesn't know what that is, like you can pretty much listen to any fucking episode. we always seem to come back to making fun of that because it's easy, but like you're kind of doing it, but you're doing it cool.
Look, as I said at the beginning, I'm probably a marketer's nightmare. If you spoke to, let's say you follow the PTDC and John Goodman, things like that for years, you'd know that you need to find your ideal avatar, your ideal client, and market everything at them and talk to them, talk how they do it, etc., etc. I'm someone that, I said I've trained a variety of people, and I enjoy training a variety of people, and I enjoy sharing a variety of things as well. So I don't actually have a niche. I don't really have a market. If anything, my market is getting people to look good, to perform better, to get stronger over a longer period of time, i.e. they can maintain that for a long period of time. I'm not a physique coach, prep coach that's trying to get someone ready in 12 weeks and shredded, and then in 6 months' time they're falling apart. I'm not that person. But if you still want to be training when you're 35, 40, 50, etc., that's kind of in a way my market. But, I'm not down to a man who's 25 years old, who has 2 kids, who has, I don't know, whatever, and that's one of those things really. I think, as I said, I'm a marketer's nightmare, but me, it's just about being me. And I think as far as my marketing goes, there's no background in marketing whatsoever. It's all kind of self-taught stuff. As soon as you come out of uni, master's degree, etc., you teach people. It's one of those things where you might be great on theory, you might be great on paper, but your marketing skills are crap. I just accepted that my marketing skills were crap and just went with it and just was me. And I think people aren't stupid nowadays. I think if you start employing this MLM marketing, if you start trying to be fake, you start trying to perceive yourself as being this character that you're not in real life, people can see through it. You got to remember that people people buy coaches, they don't buy coaching. You know, they're more likely to work with me as their coach because, I don't know, because I've got a French bulldog called Ozzy that's cute, rather than say that I've got a master's degree. They're more likely to resonate with something like that than the fact I have a certain level of education or experience.
Well,
let me get in here, buddy. Let me get in here because, like, and that was glorious. And it's sort of like a faux pas to turn around and sort of make this quote about me. But ironically, I also have a cat named Ozzy.
I know.
Who's on my Instagram a lot. So there's that nice coincidence. But I just wanted to say that, like, everything you just described, I also feel like you're describing the way that I've gone about things for a while, focus on the long term. I definitely don't do the prep coaching stuff. And my social media is all over the place with T-Nation articles. Like, you're ready for T-Nation as well. I feel like we're the same person. You're just like my British. And by the way, guys, go look him up. He's a lot better looking than we are. So the girls will like this stuff too. And that British accent. So I got a feeling you're going to get a few new female followers. But we're talking about the fitness conference that we put on every September here now in Edmonton, or writing articles. And a lot of the stuff I write, despite the fact that my clientele is, I don't do any fucking business coaching, but I write a lot of, trainers here, be successful because you should do this or stuff. And that's not the way, like you said, that we're told we're supposed to do it. What I really want to come to agree with is I really don't believe in niching down, especially early in your career. I think some people can do it really well, but I think that for the emerging trainer, broad to a point is really good. I think having depth of certain skills is wise, but I like the idea of being fairly broad in your array of skills. It's kind of like, I don't know, have you read the book Range by Epstein? Not the guy who hung himself and was linking up with all these billionaires and politicians and with the pedophilia ring. It's a different Epstein, but he's a really good writer. Actually, he has great ideas. Overrated writer. I think he's got wonderful ideas. But the book Range talks about more about having a of overall skills versus this mantra that you have to have, very narrow focus from very early on in age. He's probably talking about it. It certainly applies to athletes, but I think he uses the example of like Tiger Woods specializing at like 2 years of age in golf versus Roger Federer, who, one of the greatest tennis players of all time, who dabbled in a lot of different sports and then started to really get serious about tennis in his teens. So I think you could apply the same sort of lesson to being a trainer. And I like the idea of letting people see a diverse array of you versus trying to niche down so hard that you're missing general population. Like, I think the general population is the best place to be a busy, successful trainer and to learn a lot.
Yeah, definitely. As I said, my background is with performance, especially with youth performance and working with academies and just working with what we call over here the long-term athlete development model, LTAD. And part of that is actually discouraging from early specialization. So making sure that kids have a variety of sports. They're involved in some kind of, let's say, a gymnastic sport, an individual sport, and a team sport. And at some point, they all end up complementing each other as they later in life specialize in one area or one of those sports. So I think the same here could be applied to fitness and not niching down too early on something and just building up your tool set with a variety of clients and just kind of working out what area you want to be in. And I think by the time you get to the area as well, you're not as fake either. You don't need to force the marketing or anything like that. You're just you really, and you're speaking to the audience that you know the most about.
Which is like we've talked about that in some form or fashion, this whole idea of like what a niche is and like, should you niche? And like, because like not the biggest, but there's a lot of info out there, like especially like when you go into online training, it's like, you got to find your niche. You got to do this, 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 and this. It's like, you don't even have the right to have a niche. It's interesting that you have the ability to, like, you have a skill set where you could niche down. You're like, I just like working with people. Like, that's a normal answer for a lot of people that get into fitness. It's like, most people aren't nicheable.
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's it. Like my average week, as I said, most of what pays the bills is my online business nowadays. But I love the one-to-one stuff. I still do between 15 and 20 one-to-one sessions a week. I've got a home garage, home gym setup nowadays that I do everything from because it's easy for me. And it doesn't kind of eat into my time with what pays the bills really. But during the week, I see, I'm working with a really high level GB triathlete. I'm working with CEOs of multi-million-dollar businesses, and young kids, so I'm seeing a variety of people, and it means that my week's interesting as well. And it keeps my skill set fresh as I'm trying different things out with different people, and they're developing in different ways as well.
Yeah, and it's like, I think the biggest message too is that like it's okay not to niche.
100%.
And that might get lost a lot of the times because there is a lot of conflicting information about like what you need to do in your career to like reach these places. And I think it's a good message that like you're still doing the stuff that got you to where you're at.
Yeah.
Like, and you like it. Like, and that's totally okay, and not usually the general information that's given out in terms of progression in this career, which could be just doing the thing that you wanted to do, and you don't need to do these things that X, Y, and Z did.
That's
Dean,
you got to
go
enjoy
ahead first.
your job at the end of the day, haven't you? So,
yeah.
Dean, and for the audience, I usually write these up and kind of structure the questions. We usually go all over the place, but we were just talking about being in the online space, and Dean, I'll get you to ask the question that sort of applies to you, and we'll skip over mine and come back to it.
Okay, so you're predominantly in the online space. I guess much like myself, I've kind of made that transition into nutrition pretty much. But after the industry seemed to push towards online a few years ago, and like we've talked about this before, many coaches have needed to go back to actually doing in-person training. So your opinion is pretty sweet on this because you're doing both. What are the most important aspects of sustaining or sustainable success online in the fitness industry, like right now as we see it?
I think number one is get the experience in person first. As I said, I've had years and years and years before actually going into the online space, and I was probably a pretty late adopter. I came into the online space where you had a lot of people marketing for online training being a thing, and online trainer coaches, 6 figures, etc. So I came in pretty late, and I started probably about a year and a half ago now. But as I said, I had a background where I had 15,000 hours work with people one-to-one and had that experience. And sometimes when you get an online client, it's one of those things where I don't know, you get someone apply, and just from experience of working with people actually in person, you get a really good understanding of that person that's applied online without ever even meeting them, just with a few notes that they've made on a consultation form. So within a few minutes, you know what they're going to be like. You know what kind of the from a broad perspective, an exercise selection might look like for them. You know if they're going to stick at it, and you know if it's right for them. So first of all, I'd say you need to be really, really good at distinguishing from the people that are going to stick with you long term and the people that online coaching just isn't for, to start off with. A lot of my clients, I'm super lucky. When I first started online coaching, a lot of those people are actually still with me to date. So my retention's massively high, and that's because I do focus on just give. I give people a lot of value for their money, really, and I do spend a lot of time on those people. Whereas, as you said, I lived in Australia for a year, and the reason I moved to Australia actually was to focus on the online stuff. At that point, I was probably hitting 40 up to 50 one-to-one sessions every single week at that point, and I almost needed that cutoff of moving, flying 10,000 miles away to stop training people one-to-one, to force me to spend time on my online business and actually do courses, etc., to learn how to do online coaching and work with people and what systems work. And when I moved out to Australia, I did a few different online courses, worked with a few coaching trainers that showed you how to do online coaching. And I'll be honest, to this day, I probably use 5% of the information that was actually given to me. And actually, for one of them, I think I'm currently an advert that I'm a so-called 6-figure online coach because of their help. I won't mention any names.
Yes.
I did a testimonial video for them, and it was actually edited that they had made me into a 6-figure online coach, all by themselves because their systems, etc.
Yeah.
So, for anyone that's looking into these online coaching platforms, how to be an online coach, I would massively vet them. And, I did massively vet them myself, sorry. But even then, you've got to find your own way, really. You've got to find your own way to do things. And, it all goes back down to just giving a shit ton of value for people's money. They've got to perceive you as being worth their effort and worth the money that they're paying for you. That's their hard-earned cash that they might be forking out, $200 a month for you for. So you've got to massively give them a return on that, really. Well, I said, for me, it's about retention, and I'm someone that gets a lot of people through, say, I don't know, a husband's training with me, and then the wife starts because the husband's kind of giving me the nod. Said to the wife, look, he's really good. This is what he's done. This is how his training looks. It comes through on an app, and this is what it looks like, blah, blah, blah. And then I end up getting the other half as well. And that's kind of my marketing approach, really, just giving a shit ton of value for people's money.
Well, and that's another thing, too. Like, I'm not going to say I know everything they fucking preach, but a lot of it comes to like attracting people based on what you could offer, and like the offer has to be good and they got to know that there's value. But at the end of the day, even if they do sign up with you, you have to actually deliver that value. Otherwise you'll have no retention. And so like it's almost like everyone's focusing on like building what the thing should look like, but they don't even have the capacity or ability to do the things that they're saying they're going to do. And I think like if you're looking at jumping in the online space, like, and you're looking at all the flashy stuff first, you've missed the mark on a sustainable business. Like, there's no fucking way it's going to work. And like, that's probably why it's so saturated, because there's like a graveyard of fucking online trainers and online trainer coaches, because they all suck shit at the actual ability to do the thing they say they're going to do, which is like missed.
Yeah, I think online coaches or trainers that are wanting to be online coaches don't realize as well that, this dream of, I suppose, living on a beach and being on your computer, working from there, etc. You're trading in a social job where you're chatting to people all day, working with people hands-on for, in effect, an IT job. And that's why you get a shit ton of PTs that are, trainers that stop the online stuff because they actually miss the one-to-one stuff.
Well, and I can like, that's my last years. Like, I'm still trading one-on-one and I have a group class, but like, this is the first year where, and it's cold here in Canada. There's no sun and it's -40. But like, it's the first time I felt isolated. So that social aspect was something that I didn't even notice because I always had it until I didn't. And I had to create solutions to fix that. Cause like, I was like, what the fuck's going on? Like, not that I'm like sad, but I'm like, I feel like off. And part of that was because I had this like dream online job that like, you're sitting in the beach, but like, really I'm sitting in my fucking house in Canada, it's -40, and I'm not talking to people like in person. And like, that does weigh on people. And I don't think that even gets talked about much, because the attractive nature of online is you can do all those things, but like, that's usually not what the fuck's happening. So I'm glad you pointed it out, because even if you are on a beach, you're fucking sitting in Starbucks on your computer and like, you're not doing anything fun. Like, it's fun sort of, but it's not that fun. Like, it just gives you the ability to do more stuff, but the IT job is not sexy.
That's it. And I do have a decent size online clientele, and the reality is I'm on my phone most of the day. In the evening when I should be sat down watching Peaky Blinders or whatever, I'm replying to online coaching clients because they've asked, I don't know, whether they should log down the total weight of the barbell and the plates on the outside, or just the plates on the outside. I get questions like that all the time, and that's the stuff that you've got to be prepared to respond to.
Yeah, that's like, not that it sucks, but like, that is the job description a lot of the times. And like, when you talk about online coaching, it's like, what does it actually entail? I don't even know if these programs like kind of prepare people for that part of the world, or that part of the, I guess, job description, because that does require different skills. Like, it requires patience with yourself, patience with other people. It requires like time, and like, what you're giving up is your time and your freedom. A lot of the times, like, you're handcuffed to this thing, which is like totally fine. It gives you the ability to do other things, but you have to understand what that is and what it looks like. It's not usually what people think.
It literally becomes part of your life.
Yeah. So like, you can't watch Peaky Blinders at night because like even with people with time differences, like not that I usually have cutoffs, but like sometimes people will text me at like 11 o'clock my time and it's fucking whatever. They're on a different side of the world and it's like, well, you still gotta like fuck. Gotta pause my show now.
I just think that the promise a lot, you're talking about these people who are teaching these systems, and I've always sort of made this point to differentiate. There are a handful of good people out there. You mentioned the PTDC and John Goodman and, you know, his online trainer academy certification. And I've done that. And I think there's a ton of value in there. If someone wants to learn that, I think it's a pretty in-depth way to learn a lot of fundamental ideas behind it. But be prepared for the reality of online coaching, like you both just described. It is, and I think it's important to answer those routine and seemingly overly simple questions with enthusiasm and patience with those people, because it's still something that they don't know. It's still something, despite the fact that we take for granted how like silly it might seem or how fundamental it might seem, it's still something they're not sure about. And you train enough people, and tons of empathy for these people. So you got to go above and beyond. And a lot of the allure of this life online, I don't think is the reality. And I think you guys are right. I think a lot of coaches are realizing it's way harder than the promise is. And when people are promising this, you got to also wonder, like, what are they getting out of it? And if they're selling you their system, then maybe be a little bit cautious about that.
Well, and I would say like we're three males. Like, I don't know, Andrew's in his 50s. I feel like Garrett's, we're
41. Fuck off.
30, 32. How old are you? So anyways, like I wasn't mature enough to have empathy in those kind of situations until like last year. You know what I mean? And like, I think like that skill you're talking about is like not something that comes without the experience of like growing up, life experiences, and then like actually training. Cause like you don't even understand the impact of that question and your answer to that person, unless you have some sort of life experience. So I mean, like, some people just suck at online coaches just from the simple fact they don't have the experience we're all talking about.
Yeah, that's it. You know, we were talking about marketing earlier, and make sure you got clients, I suppose, that connect with you through having the same belief systems, same thought systems, etc. It's exactly the same with online coaching as it is in person. You're not gonna, you know, a client isn't going to train with you if you have absolutely nothing to talk about and your sessions are completely dry. And between sets, it's just a quiet, you know, it's just 2 minutes silence. It's exactly the same with online coaching, in that, you know, I have a little bit of banter with my clients via message or via video or whatever. You've got to have that common ground with it. And as I said, that's part of the retention process as well. And I suppose those people are weaned out at the start in a way that you're getting people that already kind of know, like, trust you. So therefore, when you're training them, you've got that good retention because they already know what to expect off of you and your personality type, I suppose.
I guess
you go ahead first.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I'm just thinking of like some actionable, because like you mentioned retention, and I think maybe it was Savon that talked about retention. But like, what's your like go-to for like why do people stay with you? Like, and what can, like, I guess maybe someone who's looking to be you or be something like what you're doing, what can they learn from it?
I suppose in the last year and a half, I've kind of worked hard in putting systems in place that mean that I can save time, but also give other people a lot of value at the same time. So I have, you know, weekly emails that just my clients get. So I have a weekly email newsletter, etc., that I suppose, you know, general population get, but then my one-to-one clients, my online clients get their own individual emails, and that might even just be a summary of the articles I've written that week. I create PDFs, etc. I throw recipes at them. I make PDFs and mini ebooks of a recipe I've done that week. Just little things like that, and I just throw loads of stuff their way. If they use it, they use it. They don't, they don't. The biggest game changer for me is when I went into providing online coaching via an app. You know, I don't know what you guys use. I use Trainerize. For me and for my clients, I find it the most efficient. They've done a few updates recently, which means clients can actually send me videos of their form checks and things, which previously before they couldn't do. So just things like that, and just clients knowing that they can chat to me anytime. They can ping videos across to me. They can, you know, I'm tracking their diet, their nutrition. I'm tracking the weight they've lifted, etc. And I think just knowing that I'm doing that the whole time just gives them kind of that peace of mind as well.
I use True Coach, and yeah, True Coach is a platform that allows them to video things and upload pretty easily. It's probably why Trainer Eyes got on it so recently. And I just find I've never used Trainer Eyes. I've heard good things. I've had a great experience with True Coach because our friend Sam Pogue, he's VP of that. And so Sam and I had a chat about it, and he sold me on it for sure because I was dabbling in spreadsheets and that stuff. I found that very inefficient and clumsy and time consuming for me. Because as anyone who's listened to this for long enough knows that I'm usually the butt of jokes about not being very tech savvy. Dean does all of the recording and setup and you name it, right?
Andrew's on his iPad. Like a common joke that maybe not in here, but like in my personal life is like, I fucking hate old people and their iPads. Like, and they use it for cameras. So like Andrew's using it for a fucking camera, which is just like at my wedding, like side note. Yeah. I had a bunch of old people there, but I was in Jamaica and they all had like literally we're saying our vows and stuff. Well, there wasn't any vows, but we're like doing the wedding thing. And there's like 20 iPads with their like stupid fucking cases. I don't even know I don't even know what I'm getting at here.
He's just making fun.
Oh yeah, you're not tech savvy.
So let's go over to something else because Gareth, when we were talking before this, you had a couple things that you thought would be cool, and I agree. So you're a published author. In addition, you write for a whole bunch of publications. We mentioned that you're on T Nation, and you got a book deal early on without a lot of experience. So would you take us through how that happened, and plus the behaviors and the work ethics that led to that opportunity, and otherwise a lot of the success you've had?
Yeah, so pretty early on, I was a big avid reader of things like T Nation. And things like that, and probably even before I should have done, I started my own website, was writing on my own website, and we're talking probably 15, 16 years old at this point. And when I was about then, I managed to get published on a website. Now I won't mention their name. They're actually quite big, and I actually read over the article that I wrote. This is 16 years old. I read over the article that I wrote the other day. Terrible quality of writing, but actually the content was actually okay. The message was okay, and I could probably agree with the message still now. It was about volume basically within workout. So I'm writing out workout volume at 16 years old and reading T Nation, etc. And at 17 years old, I start training people, etc. And then go through that kind of that university process. And whilst I'm at university, obviously you learn a little bit more about critical thinking. And you're still learning off of things like T Nation and I don't know, bodybuilding.com or whatever. And because I was actually training people at the same time, I was able to apply a lot of those things and kind of see how things work and kind of manipulate things. But I suppose after university, I was kind of a bit of a victim of, I suppose, early success in a way. So I did a lot really young. I finished undergrad. At the end of undergrad, I trained quite a few people, managed to work with some really high profile teams, managed to get into some decent places for writing, and then was approached by Dorling Kindersley. I don't know whether they're a big publisher over there, but a really big publisher throughout the world. And they wanted me and another person I co-authored it with to write a book called The Complete Running and Marathon Book. Okay. Now, I've never run a marathon in my life. I'd never trained someone at that point to run a marathon. And yet here's me that was perceived as a sort of expert at 21 years old at this point to write The Complete Running and Marathon Book. And I suppose that was a thing of, up to that point, the accumulation of being out there and putting myself out there and connections and knowing the right people. But I had no authority at that point to be writing that book. And to this day, I think that book sold something like 400,000 copies throughout the world. It's in about 5 or 6 different languages. And no, Andrew, I see your face. I don't get paid per copy. Unfortunately, I think I got paid about
doing the math in my head. I'm like, are you getting?
Yeah, no, it was. If I remember rightly, I think I got paid £3,000 up front to write the book, and the other person got that as well. I wish it had been a per copy thing, but no, it wasn't. And then from that book as well, I had the opportunity to open and build a gym with someone. That didn't quite work out. So I got a lot of opportunities early on. But then because of that, I ended up being very, very saturated one-on-one. So I ended up having a lot of clients, 40, 50 sessions a week sometimes, which meant I basically had a 10-year gap or so where I couldn't do a lot of writing. I couldn't create content. I couldn't do things like that because I was literally, I hate to use the term, but in the trenches training people. And that's because of a little bit of success early on. I had a few published research papers as well out of university and things. So all that stuff, people perceive me as an expert, or at least locally, and it was I was a bit of a victim of some minor early success, and it's only within the last year and a half that I've managed to just kind of get back to finding time to actually do the stuff that I enjoy while still doing a little bit of one-to-one.
Well, a couple thoughts there. Like, a lot of people are still working very, very hard on getting busy in person, and I've always been a big proponent of, obviously getting the in-person experience. We've talked plenty about that, but that kind of is the holy grail. What it really boils down to is being able to have a strong in-person clientele. A lot of people have this idea of going online or getting away from that. No, fuck. Like, a lot of trainers are still trying to get busy in person because that does a wonderful job of paying your bills, and it opens up a lot of room to do all these other things we've been talking about. So I think that's still probably one of the most fundamentally important things any trainer should strive to do. And then you can take, after you've accumulated this experience, then you can take that in different directions and pursue things like, again, writing. I mean, we're both guys on T Nation now, and I had done 8 years worth of training. I'm into year 9. I'm into year 10. I've completed 9 years, and I'm at that same about 15,000 training hours one-on-one with clients. And all of a sudden, this year is when my writing is, taken off in a big way. It started to get involved in other interesting things. But I keep saying this: 98, 99% of my income still comes from in-person training. I do a little bit of online.
Well, and that, I would say, like, that doesn't get lost, but like online's so attractive, and like all the writing for T-Nation's attractive, and like blowing up your Instagram's attractive, but like that's a really hard thing to do a lot of times if you're still building your career, and finding that balance is something that it's skewed in both ways. Like you said, you worked too much because you had so much success that you couldn't do these other things, but then there's also people who don't want to work that much. They don't want to do 40 training sessions, and they want to put all their time into building their content, but it sucks because they're not what I mean? They got to find a balance, and I feel like there's combating opinions on either side, but there's we talk about like calories in, calories out, and just have a sustainable diet in moderation. That never gets talked about in this space. Like, that's the non-sexy answer, and that's not the opinions that are getting tossed out.
Yeah, I think Andrew, how you've done things yourself, that's probably, looking back, how I probably would have preferred to have done things, i.e. the time in the trenches before I'd written anything. As I said, I wrote some stuff early on, got some opportunities early on. I, in a way, specialized in doing some stuff like that early on, which brought me some success. But I think long term, it's kind of held me back a little bit.
Well, I also think that you're really bursting into a lot of people's view right now. I mean, you've got almost 45,000 Instagram followers, which honestly is really good. It's not the only metric of success, but I think
it's going to go up too, because
do this stuff with integrity, then, and also build a following like a lot of the people that we've talked about have done. That's awesome.
Yeah, Instagram. I actually don't like Instagram. I don't like Instagram. I don't like Facebook. I've had Instagram maybe for 3 years because the girlfriend basically said, you've got to get on it, you've got to try it, you've got to put your stuff on there. Facebook I've had since maybe 2012, something like that. So that I'm a late adopter as well. I had my own website and I wrote for other people before I had Facebook or Instagram. So that was kind of my mindset at that point. I think I had a LinkedIn profile before I had anything else anyway.
Yeah.
So I do hate social media, but I think it's a necessity with what we do. And, let's hope that Instagram and Facebook remain out there. But it's also a log for yourself as well. It's a database for yourself, I think, if you use it correctly.
Well, and that's why like we like bringing people on like you, because that's a realistic way of looking at building a career in fitness that isn't gonna, like, it's not that it's risk adverse, but like you're covering all your bases, you're still making income, you're still able to do all this stuff and work on these projects, but you still have a base in training. And like that's not sexy, you know what I mean? Like sexy answer is like, yeah, I want to be a fucking hot online Instagram model and I want people to pay me for my templated programs. But like that's shitty. I don't want to say it's shitty, but like it's just like that's not good advice.
Yeah,
create your funnel on your website. You're good. Just fucking have an offer.
Let's pivot a bit because well, we want to get this question in. So we just had Dean Somerset on the podcast last week, and what we've been doing is we're asking people about like what their personal in-person pursuits are. So Dean loves wrestling. He likes pro wrestling.
Other Dean.
Yeah, not you. Somerset does, as an example. But what are the things that you do outside of, your writing, your coaching work? Obviously, you have your dog Ozzy. I'm sure that's part of it. And then, how do you create a separation between the urge to work on the career relentlessly and being able to prioritize downtime so you can recharge?
That's probably a difficult one for me. Best person to ask would actually be the girlfriend, but it is really hard for me to separate kind of business from pleasure, really, because it's a lifestyle. It's what I enjoy as well. So it's really, really hard. So in my downtime, I enjoy baking. I know that sounds really random, but I enjoy cooking things and baking. I bake cakes. I know that sounds a little bit soft. But then I managed to find a way to link that with the career and kind of the business side of things. And I really like protein baking and things like that. I use protein powders and things like that. And if you check out tnation.com, there's a few of my recipes on there as well, using their metabolic drive protein powders. So even a hobby that I enjoy has actually ended up being linked with kind of my career in a way. But no, every time I'm baking, it's kind of like meditation for me. I'll chuck a podcast on in the background or something, and I'll just kind of be there with my mixing bowl, with my customized spoon that says Gareth on it, mixing some cake batter around, and that's kind of me really, and that's my downtime.
Like I'm not gonna like stereotype shit with like women or whatever, but they're just gonna keep hearing this stuff, and hopefully they focus on the fact that, hey, there's a girlfriend in the picture, because you get this guy, the accent, the dude likes to fucking bake, and women are just gonna go completely bananas. But no, that's glorious, and I like how you've used it and tied it to your social media, because like that's actually quite brilliant. And if you get this guy who's lifting, doing all this sort of shit, at the same time, it's like, hey, it's cool to bake. Here's some actual cool baking recipes. Here's protein in it. Dudes won't be like, oh man, like I'm not gonna bake. They'll be like, okay, fuck, maybe I'll try that, right? You probably got a great protein pancake recipe. Everybody talks about fucking protein pancakes.
Oh yeah, I got a brilliant protein. Yeah, check out tnation.com. There's one on there. I've got some protein waffles on there as well. But look, it's not all healthy stuff either. I had one of my best mates is a physical therapist, and it was his birthday. It was a surprise birthday party a couple of weeks ago. And his girlfriend asked me to bake a cake. So I'm not going to bake this protein cake that him and his mum and, I don't know, the rest of his family have. So I baked this giant chocolate Guinness cake. So it had about 1.5 pints of Guinness in it. It was, a whole stick of butter in there. Absolutely brilliant. It was topped with like a cream cheese frosting. It looked like Guinness. I even went to like Guinness website and ordered some little mini Guinness truffles and chucked those on top. So I'm a bit of a baking nerd, and but it was a manly chocolate Guinness cake, so it's fine.
That sounds great. It's funny you say Guinness cake, because my wife and I, we watched Below Deck, and they had an Irish theme night, and he made a Guinness cake, and I was like, oh my god, that looks so good. Like I don't know what it tastes like, but the fact that there's Guinness in it and it's a cake, like it must have been awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. I'll tie this back into what we were talking about with online clients and engagement, whatever. One of my online clients, she's super. I don't know if her name is Vashti, and she's a musician down in California. And I think she might listen to these sometimes, so if she hears this, she'll be excited. But she's planning on sending me some cookies. She got a little bogged down during the Christmas season, and she's like looking up custom stuff. and see if she can get through. I'm like, what are you putting in it? She's like, bourbon. So, I'm like, okay.
You can send cookies in the mail, man, across the border.
Well, so this is not the only time this has happened. One of the Stronger You coaches who follows me, Jeannie, who's really lovely, she's a sweetheart, she sent me a bunch of baking stuff for Christmas as well. And like, I think
They make it?
What? Yeah, they made it. They were great. Yeah, I know,
So
totally.
fucked up. Like, that shouldn't happen. Like, they're worried about like produce coming through when you go through an airport and you can just send it to the mail. Like, fuck.
Yeah, apparently,
Yeah.
right? So anyway, I think the gesture is like incredible, because I'm sure the cost of shipping it plus getting it into another country is probably almost prohibitively not worth it. But it's the fact that someone would make that effort, because she just loves the stuff I'm putting up on social media, and she's been sharing it relentlessly with her people because she finds a ton of value, and then she'll go do it and she'll tag me in and stuff. And you know that if you're doing that kind of thing where people are reciprocating with that kind of appreciation, you might be onto something really good. And so, for anyone who's listening, if you've got that kind of client, just pay attention to what you've been doing and how you can get value for that person, and maybe do more of that with everybody else.
That's it. See, how comes I'm the person that doesn't get that stuff sent to me? Maybe your online clients just like you more than mine like me. Mine don't ever send me anything like that, and that's maybe because they think that I might not like it, or I might judge their cooking or something like that.
Well,
so I think you've probably got the better approach. Just pretend you're a really crap cook, and get them to do that.
I'm a utilitarian cook. I just make batches of food that I actually like it fine.
Yeah.
One of my ideas for meal prep, I had a bunch of friends over on Saturday night, and I invited Guido, but he wasn't up for it, so that's fine. We live half an hour away in the same city, actually, so it's like opposite sides of the city, and it's fucking cold. But anyway, so I barbecued steak and baked a bunch of potatoes and asparagus and stuff, and a couple people couldn't make it, so I ended up with 5 extra steaks. I had 15 of them, so I had 5 extra meals. So that took care of me for a few days.
I just feel sorry for you, dude. Like, you're 50 and unmarried, so that's why you get cookies.
It works. Fuck it.
that or you just trashed every trainer. That or you just trashed every online trainer who doesn't get sent cookies, because you basically just said the order of your success.
I do very little online training, so I am the furthest thing from an expert in this. So I got a feeling Gareth and his longevity with all his clients is probably got it on lockdown. So people should probably listen to him more than me about how to be a great online trainer.
I agree. Okay, let's where I know we talked about this earlier, but like, where's the best place to find what you're kind of putting out there right now?
Probably the most at the moment on Instagram, so at the Fitness Maverick, or I'm mostly doing stuff for T Nation at the moment. So tnation.com. Probably got about 45, 50 articles up there at the moment, and 1 or 2 coming up every week. And then the fitnessmaverick.com. That's my own website. Anything that T Nation doesn't accept, I just chuck on the fitnessmaverick.com. That's my approach.
That works.
We have to do a Top Gun poster for his thing.
Actually, that would totally work. Yeah.
Sorry. I'm sure you've never heard
the new film's Maverick, isn't it?
Yeah. Not that you've never heard that, but that's probably the best way to go with this, especially because Top Gun 2 is coming out, which is probably a good way to get a good article out there around that, because you're the Fitness Maverick.
Which is called Top Gun. It's called Top Gun Maverick, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is called Top Gun Maverick, or the Maverick or something. Like, Tom Cruise is actually like 60 for one last time.
He looks 40. So
how old is he actually? I should look this up.
I think he's 60.
But he right? Fuck. Tom. I can't even. I'm looking up Tom Brady now. Fuck. I just lost my train of thought.
Another ageless wonder. You're looking up Tom Cruise's age. Now everybody's going to need to know, so you need to look it up.
I just need to look it up. Really. He's 57. He's fucking 57. He looks the same. Like, he's obviously, like, that Scientology stuff he's been into, like, he's actually an alien.
It works.
He probably is the Scientologist alien shit, and like, he's the next coming, because like he looks the same.
I just still can't get past.
Active. Like, he still did all his stunts for the last Mission Impossible. Like, that's fucked. Because at that point he would have been like 55.
For me, Tom Cruise, it's kind of like before jumping on Oprah's couch and after jumping on Oprah's couch. Because like Top Gun and all those old movies, they're sweet. I really couldn't get into his stuff after. It's kind of like black Michael Jackson and white Michael Jackson, right? Like all the old music's great.
And pedophile Michael Jackson.
And
There's
that's
like
the other
3 of
problem with
those.
that stuff too.
Sorry,
Yeah. So
bad joke.
well,
We did
it
talk
is what it is.
You brought up Epstein. That's not my. I didn't start this.
True. Good point.
That's not a funny joke. It was just like that's like they're bad people. So fuck, man. Fuck.
I'm glad you needed to make that explicit.
Yeah.
Gareth, thanks for coming on, buddy. This was a bit of blast. It's been good to kind of connect more than just kind of some messages across Instagram. And I feel like I do say this so often, but when we bring people onto this podcast, we're not going, all right, well, we need an emergency guest. Fuck it, let's just settle for the bottom of the barrel. It's like, let's get someone on who we want to talk to, but we believe is doing some really awesome stuff. And so that way our audience and listeners, we're trying to throw great people in front of you if you're not yet familiar with them. And Gareth's doing some really cool stuff. So I really hope you guys will check out what he's doing. Go follow his Instagram because that's where he's pumping up most of the stuff. And yeah, I'm not going to complain if you guys are reading T-Nation because, well, I'm on there too. And I'm not quite as prolific because I don't feel like I have the time to write as much. But, it's something that I value a lot. And like you said, just growing up reading it for a long time, I've been reading it for at least a decade. And then it feels like a pretty cool honor to be able to be on there with a lot of people who I consider to be my mentors and influences as I've gone through my fitness career. So, it says something when you're on there, I think.
Definitely. Pleasure, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Shut up and sit down.